Welcome into Rounding the Bases.
Round the bases. Everybody knows Joe Goldberg. It's around the bases. Everybody knows Joe Goldberg.
Welcome into another episode of Rounding the Bases, presented by Community America Credit Union. I'm Joel Goldberg. Great episode coming up. A quick shout out to my friends at Community America, as well as Chief of Staff Kansas City. Whether you're in Kansas City or maybe you're in Texas, like my guest. I think my guest is in Texas. I'll find out in just a moment. But if you're in the market for a job or looking for a great resource or looking to hire, check them out. They really believe in people and culture. chiefofstaffkc.com, making connections that matter. I've got a really good connection today that comes via one of my business coaches and someone that's been on this podcast before, Brian Bogert, who I've had the opportunity to connect with some really amazing people, including my guest today. And I'm joined by a trailblazer who broke through burnout to reset biology where science meets soul. Her name is Dr. Remina Panjwani, an immigrant, a veteran, and a distinguished physician whose countercultural approach has redefined what it means to heal. By fusing Eastern and Western medicine, she empowers high-performance individuals to optimize their wellness, leading the way to more balanced living with sustained, indomitable energy. So I'm joined right now by Dr. Remina. I mentioned, I think she's in Texas. Are you in Texas?
I am. I'm in Dallas.
Okay, that's what I thought. I know that's home, but you never know with the speaking and the medicine and all the million things that you're doing. I mean, okay, fine. We know that you've got the doctor in front of your title. That barely even attempts to describe anything and everything that you're doing. How do you, Remina, describe yourself?
That's an interesting question because it's when we talk about how do you describe yourself, what do you do, or like, who are you? Almost encompass like what I do is who I am. So yeah, part of it, I am a physician. I'll pick up shifts in the hospital. I do functional medicine, concierge practice. So I'm like your one-on-one personalized doctor. I'm a mom. I have two boys, 4 and 7. So they keep me busy and crazy. And then I'm a writer, an author, I should say, a best-selling author, thank God, speaker, and I run workshops and yeah, gosh, it's like an ongoing list.
Yeah, which is great because I don't know, and we can talk about this a little later too. I mean, there I'm sure are certain points where you're like, okay, this is too much. What do I cut out? But if this is who you are and what you love, it's like, that's such a sweet spot. A lot of people never have the opportunity to get to do what they love. And with you, it's such an interesting mix. I mean, what I said in the intro, fusing Eastern and Western medicine, empowering high-performance individuals to optimize wellness. That's not just doctor. I mean, when you start talking about immigrant, veteran, doctor, speaker, writer, oh, by the way, mom, maybe the most important job, yogi, breath work, all these things, it's like, wow. So I guess my question that a lot of people would have, I'm sure a lot of moms, but not just moms, dads, anybody for that matter, how in the world do you do it all?
I think the most important component is nervous system regulation. I teach and I empower everyone who works with me, any talks that I do, anything, even in my book, I emphasize nervous system regulation because it's the key component. It analyzes, it pulls in, interprets everything that comes into our system, good, bad, whatever you want to label it. It's through our system. So anything we respond to, the way we show up, the way we're present or not, what's our wiring? What's going on underneath subconscious reprogramming and programming? It goes back to nervous system. So if you have good habits that fuel you, that means you're more balanced and you have more capacity to show up at everything you do. The other part is my passion and purpose. I get to do this. When there was a period of time where I was just fully corporate medicine, I was burnt out. I couldn't do everything I could do today. And I'm so grateful for it that, I had to go through that to be where I am today, to actually know how to blend the best of both Eastern and Western. But a big part of it is I truly enjoy everything I do, from the entrepreneurial side to being a mom. And that is what keeps me going.
I'm so intrigued by the melding of all of these worlds together, and that maybe the centerpiece, as you just alluded to, is the nervous system. If it all starts there, and then you know, if you don't have that right, you're going to struggle with any of the things that you just mentioned. And all of us could relate. Many of us could relate to being a parent, to being an entrepreneur, to being busy with business, to being busy with life. And I mean, I always have everybody say to me, "You're the busiest person in the world." I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm busy like everybody else. Mine might be more visible because I'm on TV, but most entrepreneurs and most leaders are extremely busy with everything. And oh, by the way, they've got the rest of life and the personal side to it too. And I don't know, like, I never knew about meditation, breath work, you know, the taking care of the nervous system, you know, reflexively now. And I've been working on this for the last year, and people have heard me talk about it on this podcast. When I find myself starting to get ramped up, I know that I've got to find time to close my eyes and do some type of a meditation, whether it be a guided meditation, whether it be some type of sound baths, which I know that you're very familiar with, or just, and you do it enough and you start to feel the difference. I'm wondering, that this is a very layered question, because it could go a lot of directions, how you came to all of this, because you have such a unique background. You're not the only one, you know, you're not the only one that is an immigrant and a veteran and a doctor and all that, but it is, at least for me, not an everyday combination of things. And I'm wondering, in the midst of finding all of that, finding yourself, how you came to this point.
Yeah, that is actually what brought me to where I am. It's my personal experience that I had to live through, that I healed through, if you want to call it.
Yeah.
It's a type of healing that I knew I was going through. At the time I didn't know it was a purpose, but this is my purpose. So going through all the modalities, where we all know there's a gap in the conventional medicine system. And for all the periods of time that I went through, I truly believe in this, where you have a lot of experiences in your life and certain ages, especially when you go through the first 7 years of life, and then so 0 to 7, and then, 7 to 14, those are key into your developmental span as a child, but then it shows up in adulthood. How that affects us today, of how we take all the inputs and how we respond, and how our nervous system is regulated. And so for everything you said, and I'm sure, everybody has some sort of trauma, big T, little t, right? Maybe you were raised a certain way. Maybe your parents said certain things, or something happened at school, or maybe you went through socioeconomic issues, right? There's so many things that are interpreted by your nervous system. And so during those times, I've had a lot of things going on during those age ranges, and being the first child in my family and a girl in the South Asian culture to get an education. When I was told, oh, just go get married and have kids. And it was just unusual for me, because my parents came from just a developing country. Was different. You're in survival mode already. And so you already are living from paycheck to paycheck. So that survival mode does transfer to kids during the key ages. So you have all that going on, other inputs, lifestyle, how you're living, how's your sleep, how's your food, all that stuff, all inputs to your body. So for me, I started before, going into the military. Let me put that too. The military was another input, war zone, right? So yes, it was great. It helped me develop so much of my character, learn grit and all the skills that I needed. But what showed up, and it gives me so much empathy today, is I would say when I got into undergrad, I started having panic attacks. And for those of y'all, a lot of high performers, we don't show up with anxiety and depression like normal people, right? We may still be able to function. So we look normal on the outside, but there's a lot going on. And eventually it will show up in your body. It shows up. And for me, it had to get out, and it got out in panic attacks, heart racing, couldn't breathe, like just all the things you can imagine, and a little touch of anxiety and depression, but I kept functioning. So that put me through the conventional system. I went to the regular primary care doctor that was on campus, did just regular therapy, and all they wanted to do was give you antidepressants. So, and also tell you it's all in your head. Everything is fine, it's all in your head. And that's disappointing because you're going to a healthcare system that you think is going to help you. And yes, it's great for a reactive bandage approach, but there was something deeper. And so what I started exploring was there's a yoga teacher on campus, and that's what did it for me. He trained in India. He taught me breath work. He taught me to be present and meditate and moving your body and tapping into your nervous system and the things that you eat. So I didn't know these were little nuggets that I would actually apply to what I'm doing today. So fast forward, it helped me get through. I didn't have panic attacks. I got into med school. I used it through med school, and I use it today in everything that I function with. So it works. It works. And a lot of high performers, just everyone's talking about it, right? Like it's the big fad now. People want to go do yoga. People want to be healthier and look into alternative health. They don't want to be stuck in this bandage approach.
Well, and we've always done it one way, right? And a lot of that is Western society, and it's all about the mighty dollar. And I'll say, my wife and I and our family started going really only because I'm an independent contractor and I was paying for insurance, and we decided, you know what, we're going to take a look at concierge medicine, and it was incredible to, like, we love the office that we go to here. There have been times over the years where I've gone in for a physical and had to reschedule because we sat and chatted for an hour about what's going on in life. And it's it's the approach that I always heard about from past generations, right? And now everything is so based on the money, the insurance, the billing, the this and the that. I bring all that up because you're balancing both of these worlds, Eastern and Western. You also have a background in both of those worlds too. And I wonder, when you go back to those times of anxiety and so much of what helped shape you today, and then going through the medical part. By the way, not to get too on a tangent here, but as you were saying all that, I'm thinking a young immigrant woman going in for help from a doctor who says, "Oh, it's all in your head." There had to have been issues there too, right? Like, oh, it just must be you. You're just an immigrant. Or maybe I'm making that up, but I'm guessing that you didn't get the fair shake that you felt like you deserved either, and you're not the only one.
Yeah, I would say a part of it, yeah, it is, because you can't truly understand what someone is going through unless you're aware of it. That's number one. And then also seeing the other side, I think physicians in the conventional system, they're just so pressured. They're so pressured on just going through the red tape, check marks, and then you're limited. So really, if you have 5 to 10 minutes with each patient, maybe 5 to 10 minutes, you're just like, all right, check this. I don't have the capacity. I have this much to do, this many patients, like just get out my door. Like that's sadly what it is, contrary to how it should be, right? Like truly sit down, see the person for who they are, and do the personalized approach. But yeah, I mean, I was brushed off, and probably other people that were immigrants. But also what I started noticing is, if you look at other cultures that are doctors, they will brush you off too now because it's more of the system. It's sad, but that's what you become when you're stuck in the system and you're overworked.
They learned from us probably, and now you talked about the influence of someone over, that influenced you and the yoga teacher and all of that. It's interesting that so much of Western society is starting to look back to the way things used to be, which gives me some hope. Then again, we're dealing in this age of AI and everything is fast, and that's a whole nother discussion too. Like, we're all trying to keep up. But I want to, before I push forward with some of that, I want to just dig a little bit more into the background because it's so unique. Tell me about childhood and your family's move to the United States, or was it the U.S. at that point, or and then high school, military? Like, it's such a I think you experienced a lot more by 18, 19, 20 years old than a lot of kids like myself that grew up here in the United States. And now you could share so much of that with people, whether it be on stage or whether it be your patients too. What was childhood like for a young Remina? You already alluded to being told, you're supposed to get married and have kids and do all that type of stuff. So what was childhood like?
Oh gosh, let's see. So my background is quite, I think back, it's so different because my kids are not going to live this. I kind of want to take them to abroad and see how things are. And eventually I'll take them when they're old enough to receive that. But my grandmother was a refugee. So she lived in Pakistan. And then she, for her second marriage, she went to Africa, was a refugee during that time, ended up in Denmark. So I was born in Denmark. And then for the majority of that upbringing, it was in the United States. So yes, my parents eventually went from India and Pakistan, and then for a couple of years made it to Denmark. So slowly started getting out of that developing country set and then to the United States. So for me growing up, we basically moved around. Texas is eventually what I called home. And it was different. When in my earlier childhood, we did live in Atlanta a little bit more. And that one's a little bit more, I would say, I hate to say the word, no, I'm going to say it's backwards. It's a little backwards because it was in the South at that time. And I was probably the only different cultured person there. And it was unusual because I was confused. I'm like, why am I being so treated differently? I came to Texas, it was better because it was a little bit more diverse at that time. And now it's a big melting pot. But growing up, it was a little different because I didn't know that we didn't have a lot of money, but because my parents did the best that they could. And I appreciate them so much with all the trauma that they lived, that they did pass on, that, I believe in generational trauma and you can break it. There's certain things. It takes about 5 generations. And so for me, yeah. And I didn't know that I was living that, right? I mean, I thought it was normal to like live paycheck to paycheck, to live in a 1-bedroom apartment with my brother, my dad, and my mom and I, right? Like I thought that was normal. And just, but my parents always, they instilled so many good things, good high morals, ethical values that I don't think has any monetary value. So of course, during that time, like I couldn't even, the way I dress, I couldn't speak a certain way because girls had to be quiet, look down, don't be seen or heard, just quiet and keep the peace, don't do anything, just do as I say and go be a good bride. Basically that's it. And to me, I just look back and I'm like, oh gosh, that's no wonder I became a little rebellious. So I would say by high school I just wanted to become me. And so I told them one day, I said, look, mom, dad, I'm going to be 18 soon and I'm going to go join the military. So either you support me or I'm just going to go. And so imagine to like traditional South Asian parents are like, okay.
That was never part of, you had dreams, obviously. And maybe those dreams were muted a little bit just based on what you were told you couldn't do. But obviously being rebellious, your mind wandered a little bit. You're, I'm assuming, being influenced by American kids that are having their own dreams. And there's got to be some process for a young Remina that's saying, wait a minute, why can't I do those things? I can. And now you got this other side with these parents that I'm guessing very proud of their heritage and where they've come. And with that comes an incredible grit and resilience. You've talked about that grit, which I am guessing that you inherited for them, even if it showed up in on a different path than what they thought. Was there a point where I don't want to say the word changed, but was there a point where they said, you know what? This is a good thing that she can do this. She still does represent our family, our grit, our morals, and everything that we're believing in, even if it doesn't mean just getting married and having babies. Did that happen at some point?
I would say at some point, and there's still some things that are unusual for them that I think what it comes down to is it ties to worth, because what we've been taught in society is you have to earn your worth. And that's, unfortunately, it can take an effect on a young mind that hasn't been developed, right? So you have to earn your worth is what basically it was. But worth was different for what they thought versus what I wanted, right? I always knew there was a higher calling, I guess an intuition, and that was already there at a young age. But then when there's outside noise saying, no, you're not good enough, you're not smart enough, you're, all the things, the terrible things you should never say to a child. But I guess I found a way to use that as fuel. And that's how I rebelled with I was a rebel with a good cause.
Yeah.
And I would say when I made it to medical school is probably when they finally like, okay, because yes, they were good with, okay, you got married, you had kids, but I don't think it was until I got into medical school and became a doctor is when they're like, all right, well, I guess you're okay now. But it taught a lot. It taught me a lot because I wouldn't be who I am today if I didn't have that resistance from my own parents, right? And that's something that it's also teaching me boundaries. It's a lot of the self-development that I didn't know that I've learned all these life lessons with. So there were periods of time where they're like, yes, of course you got married, you got kids, and then you became a doctor. So those were the things. But I think I just had to find it within myself that it doesn't matter if they approve or not. It's really my life and what I want.
What did the military service do for you?
Oh gosh, we had good times and some scary times, of course. But of course, it helped me get the financial means to go get an education. That was one of the major things. But I look back and I got much more. It helped me learn and develop confidence in my worth. I think that's where it really started, because I remember this moment so clearly. I was in Baghdad, Iraq, and it was in the war zone. I believe it was a 2004, and I was with security forces, and there was this huge explosion, and it was definitely a higher power. For me, I call that higher power God, and I knew from that point I had a purpose. It missed me. That huge explosion missed me, and at that point, I had to make a commitment and mission. My new mission was to go change the trajectory of where I came from and where my future generation will go. And that's where I thought, okay, no one's ever going to tell me I'm not good enough or any of the no's. And I'm going to go get an education. And if I want to be a doctor, I'm going to make it happen. And with education, I feel, especially for women, with an education, no one can tell you or challenge you if you have the knowledge and then you add the experience and the wisdom. Oh, you're unstoppable then. So I made that mission, and I still live by it today. And worth and confidence, it comes in stages. So that was the first part, I would say.
I mean, that's a life-changing moment there, a life-saving moment, I guess, or right, potentially a near-death experience. I mean, is that one of those moments that you can vividly remember every bit of it? I don't want to open up wounds or anything like that, but I guess I'm trying to paint a picture. Those of us that did not serve, those of us that have not been in the middle of war, can't quite picture that. But at least in my head, I'm picturing chaos and things slowing down enough for you at a certain point where you had this moment of clarity, either in that moment or afterwards. Am I getting any of that right? Like, what do you remember about it?
Exactly. I remember all the details. It looked like it was literally right in front of me, but I would say it was probably maybe half a mile, maybe. I don't know. I don't remember but it was really close. There was 4 big gas tanks. So a big rocket hit that gas tank, and so the explosion, which was much more dramatic, much more larger. So we had our gear on, but I mean, honestly, like, it's a miss, thank God. But we were surrounded by sandbags. I had my gear on, and we were silent. We're like, whoa. And the sirens were going off, right? Anytime the bomb or something hits, there's always a siren, and it means you got to take cover or whatever you need if you have your weapons. So that's what we were doing. We're doing what was almost happening multiple times a day, every day. But that one was the closest. And so that made it real.
All these years later, you're here to talk about it. You're impacting other lives. And I just wonder how much, not just that moment and the childhood that we talked about, set you up to be able to live your passion of helping people. And, we talked about central nervous system and being pulled in a million different directions. Part of, I have to imagine, the joy, but it's a double-edged sword of doing what you do, is there's so much that you can do, right? I mean, you're practicing medicine, a very holistic approach with a lot of it. You've mastered so many different um, aspects of this, I guess, whether it be the breath work that you've talked about, and yoga and nervous system, and just seeing patients and shifts and all of that. And you talked about how you're able to pull all of that together. But I'm wondering how all of that background has led you to where you're at now in terms of um, whoever you're talking to or whoever you're dealing with, however bad it is, you've been there, right? And I'm wondering how that impacts you as a doctor.
Mm. I definitely see with a different lens. I
Mm,
definitely have a different set of perspective and tools. And it's it's actually interesting. So when I pick up shifts in the hospital, and what comes to mind is this one of the patients I saw came in with a lot of chest pain and like abdominal discomfort and everything. The entire workup was normal, if you want to say. And so what I said to her was, because I picked up that she wanted more and she would be willing to listen. So then normally physicians don't do this in a conventional system. But I said, I think you need a more root cause approach. It would be very beneficial if you had someone actually look at perhaps functional medicine. And they're like, what's that? And I'm like,
mm,
and I actually dive in to all the modern modalities that we have, because the ancient wisdom and practices, Ayurveda, all that has been there. But how I bridged it is one thing that I do, and how I practice medicine today to my one-on-one clients too, right? So with her, I said, well, you know, we have a normal nervous system, but everyone thinks about the nervous system from the brain and your central nervous system, but there's also an enteric nervous system, your gut. And there's so much research that shows there's gut brain axis, and it's bidirectional. So if one's inflamed, it goes both directions. Hence, what you eat, your mental health, your everything is tied. And every other symptom may seem unrelated, but it is. It's all related. Maybe your chest pain, sometimes where you're located at, it might be in your gut, and it might be related to what you think is healthy, or maybe you're having an imbalance. So
mm.
I think you need to have a different approach with a comprehensive like labs and all that. And so they're like, whoa, well, where do I find that? And so
Yeah.
it's like, I definitely give them additional tools that will actually help them. It's sustainable. So it gets them to root cause, so they know what's going on. And guess what? Less visits to the hospital. You're actually healthier. You're not setting yourself up for a long, unhealthy last decade of life, right? Because we look at the States right now, your last decade of life, you're pretty much in and out of the hospital. Quality of life
Mm.
goes down unless you do something about it way in advance. So it definitely changes how I approach people.
It's such a difficult thing too, because we live in this Western society where, because of money, capitalism,
Mhm.
it. I'll relate this to sports. Not everything needs to be, but I tend to find great analogies there. Is that you're living life with an opponent on the other side trying to beat you, and oftentimes that opponent could be whatever big business it is, right? And they want to push all this cheap, easy, quick, tasty food on you that is sending you to the hospital, where they're making money on the hospital. So the system is rigged
Mhm.
against all of us, right? And we're moving at such a rapid pace. We don't have time to learn all of this, and we've never learned it from the beginning. And I just wonder. This is. I want to ask you this question before I get to my baseball theme questions, and then I want to talk about your book and some of your services. But I just I wonder. Um, we're moving in this rapidly paced world that's only speeding up. Um, but yet we have this generation, like my kids' generation. My kids are in their early 20s. I don't know what it'll look like for your kids. My hope is it's better. The skeptic in me says it could be worse, because once we opened up Pandora's box, social media, AI, all these things, that it becomes the norm. This is where we're at. Yet the hope I have, and I'm curious what you're seeing, is that my kids' generation, which is more messed up than my generation with the mental health and anxiety and depression, it's also a generation that's willing to talk about it, that is willing to say, yeah, I do go to a therapist. Yeah, I am meditating. Yeah, I am dealing with some depression and anxiety. Oh, you are too? Oh, and most of them are. So are we potentially going in a direction where there's some correction going on? is there hope? Because more people know about what you're talking about now. And if you had talked about this 10 years ago, people would say, oh, that's just a bunch of garbage. That's what
Mhm.
is this stuff with the universe? It's, it's woo woo and this and that. And I feel like now when you say, well, this is a little woo woo, people are like, no, it's not. It's okay. Are we going in a good direction here or a better direction? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think in general, people are being more open to, of course, talk about it. There's more information available too. So it's a combination of that. And I think, yes, I feel like there's more of it in this generation. And maybe it's the way that lifestyle has changed, right? We have,
Mhm.
as you said, we have more screens, we have more toxic consumption of not only social media, AI, but foods, right? It's not even the same. Like if you look at cereal or if you look at bread, like common things at the store, the ingredients are longer, right? So I think I feel like in some ways it's getting worse, but it's also in some ways getting better because people
Mm.
are willing to identify it. And we know that there is a cause. Like I know our food industry is a big cause. Um, but if you have the tools, you know how to fight it. And that's becoming more available.
Yeah.
And I wanted to also add, there's with mental health and everything, there is so much information. Like you look at the high end, the Ivy League institutions like Harvard's, Johns Hopkins, they're actually coming out with all this data too, right? There's out of Harvard, there's a Dr. Palmer, and he talks about his research of how he combines all the lifestyle and everything, and it helps with mental health. And if you
Mm.
look at just in general, our lawmakers are slowly changing things, which I agree. Like it's pharmaceutical company, everything. It's all rigged. However, I think what's happening slowly is I see a big value in plant medicine, and it's slowly getting. They're undergoing a review on how they want to regulate it, and there's so much data on it. There's so much
Mm.
data that it helps you, and I mean, think about it. Pharmaceuticals have side effects. But if you go back to the plant medicine and it shows you the science behind it and it's actually showing benefit, it changes your brain, you add in all these other modalities combined, that's a game changer. And this is how you're going to help people get better.
A lot of hope there, and
Mhm.
pitfalls along the way, as there always will be. Okay, I've got three baseball themed questions. The first one, in your career, what's the biggest home run that you've hit? You've done so much, and just curious what the biggest moment, what the biggest home run is for you.
I would say actually creating my concierge practice where I can do functional medicine and blend the best of Eastern and Western. That would be the biggest thing.
It's so cool to see more of that. I mean, I never knew what it was 15 years ago. Now it's like I swear by it. It's so nice for my family just to pick up the phone and talk to their doctor and know they're going to get a call back.
Yeah.
And that's not a knock on most other doctors. It's a knock on the system, at least from my perspective, from my outsider's perspective. How about a swing and a miss along the way? We've all, as entrepreneurs, we have a lot of them. What's a swing and a miss, and what did you learn from it?
Mm. Staying in a system or in situations that were burning me out and longer than I should. So, and that goes with both professional and personal.
Hmm.
Yeah.
It's hard to pull the plug
Yeah.
on something that you've invested in. I think we've all been through that. I'm going through a little bit of it myself right now. How about the last baseball theme question, small ball? It's the title of both of my books, The Little Things. What are the little things, the secret sauce that you believe in that make you successful, that matter most to you? What is small ball to you?
It's always the little things you can do, daily habits that breed that success. And I think this is how you get to the next level. So little things, I will make sure. And if you look at a lot of the high performers, there's something that they do to regulate themselves to get them started for the day and wind down. So for me, I need to have my morning before when I wake up, before anybody wakes up, before even grabbing my phone, I need to just breathe, be present, practice gratitude because that rewires your brain, neuroplasticity, and sets off the rest of the day. And just breathe, do some meditation. And I do that in the morning before anything, and I do that before bed. And that is just basic daily things that I can do. And it takes like no time.
Yep. My rule is no social media or scrolling until I do my morning meditation. I violated that for about 10 minutes this morning, and I knew I was doing it. And I don't know if I thought I needed it or what, and then I still got to the meditation. But you know what? The meditation is never as good when it follows the scrolling. And
Yeah.
so I hear a lot of people say that. I believe in it. I really do. Okay, I usually wrap it up with four final questions as we round the bases. So let's start with this one. Your book, 2026 International Impact Book Award. This is definitely one that everybody should read. Odd Girl Out, Doctor Within, which so brilliantly describes so much of what you talked about in the early part of this podcast, just in the title alone. Tell me about the book and the feedback that you're getting.
Oh gosh, I'm so grateful. I'm getting such good feedback. It's people are saying it's an easy read and it's your recipe book to heal yourself. It's like a little guide. So if you can't get into a functional medicine doctor or a transformational coach or anything, this is your all in one. So it's part memoir, lessons that I learned and picked up, and it truly gives you a way. It's a recipe book to heal yourself, because I truly believe we're more than just a body of organs. We're mind, body, and spirit. So when you combine all these practices, you get to work through it and rewire yourself to be the best that you can be.
Check out the book for sure. And again, I mentioned the title, Odd Girl Out, Doctor Within. Second question, as we round the bases, I'm always fascinated by cultures and the differences, the traditions. We all come from somewhere that had different cultures than where we're at nowadays. And, like I look at, my grandparents were immigrants, or at least both of my grandmothers, and then my grandfathers were children of immigrants. And so I'm much further removed from those traditions than you are. But when I was younger and, we go to the grandparents' house, you'd see a little bit more of that. And now my kids don't see a lot of that, anymore. And I'm sure you've thought about that with your kids. You talked about bringing them, over to Southeast Asia at some point. Culturally, tradition, whatever it is, what grabs you from the way that you were raised? I mean, you talked about wanting to branch out, being that rebel and doing your own thing, and it's worked out so beautifully for you. But I know so much, I assume so much of what's a part of you is that background that your parents wanted to share with you and that you grew up with. Culturally, as someone that's lived in Texas for a lot of years, what's on the inside that's still very much a part of you from that Southeast Asian culture?
Oh gosh, that sense of community, the sense of being service to others, to help people. Those are values that are still ingrained in the community and the culture. And I expose my kids to that. So I'll take them, I'll make sure that they're involved with some sort of community service within the culture. And my parents live like 10 minutes down the road, so they definitely ingrain a lot of their culture. But I embrace this because there's something that can be said about any sort of community and supporting each other and being one that, even not within just our community, but outside our culture, that we are so giving and service forward.
Our third question is around the bases. And if you want to learn more about Dr. Remina, her website has everything you could possibly want to know. It's really well done. drremina.com. It'll be in the show notes. DR, like doctor, REMINA, drremina.com. And within there, you can learn about the concierge services, workshops and retreats, speaking, and all of that. What is a speaking engagement or something from that side of your business, your entrepreneurship? What does that look like? What are you trying to accomplish? And I know it's different on different audiences, but what fills your cup when you get on stage?
Oh, gosh. Just being able to sharing my passion with purpose, because not only do you get the information, but you actually get tools to walk away with and regulate at that time. So whether it's, I have a TEDx coming up next week. So that one, I'm actually going to be talking about a lot of nervous system and how that is the key to regulating yourself before you tune into any of the biohacks in the world. So there's that. Then I could talk about, women's health is big too these days, just so much. So I love to be a wealth of knowledge, but also give practical information and help people change their lives daily.
Yeah, we haven't even gone over the women's health aspect of it, but I know that you I don't want to say you're constantly talking about it, but I see on your social media feeds a lot, because a lot of times I've told you, I'll pass it along because, well, women's health probably doesn't apply to me, but I am married to an amazing woman, and so I know that you're helping out a lot of people there too. And then I'll get to my fourth question. Imagining that that's become a major piece for you.
Yes. And like you said, a lot of the men, they're like, well, I'm married to a woman, so I need to know this. I need to support. So I love that, because a lot of people, not only they fall into two categories, they're high performers, high functioning, and we want to make them optimal and have longevity and prevent burnout. Or if they're burnt out, we work on that. So the other side is the women's health. Like, we're constantly changing, like from the time we go through puberty, and then you go through perimenopause, which, yes, there's more information coming on that. Before, it was just deal with it, and then you hit menopause. So there's just so much. And I love it that, the partners, the husbands, can be there to support. And so women have a place to figure out what else to do, not just be in the conventional system.
Yeah, the website's a great place, social media as well, to get a lot of good tips from Dr. Remina. Let's wrap it up with this fourth and final question, because it'll apply to everyone, the men, the women, doesn't matter your age. We've talked quite a bit about the central nervous system. I know how much you believe in breath work and meditation. So this has become a major interest of mine. I'm not an expert on it, but what I do find is that the more I do it, the better I am. The more I learn about it, the better I am. And I don't regret that I didn't know about it before. I'm excited that there's so much to learn. And I'm sure it's the same way for you. You're obviously a lot further along with it, but let's start simple here. But we'll end with something simple. Someone that's listening to this that maybe hasn't done a whole lot of work on this, but we all know that feeling of when we get ramped up, right? I mean, if you're listening to this right now and you're stressed and you close your eyes, you'll feel it in you somewhere. Right now in the middle of baseball season and trying to run a business, I could feel it in my chest, and then when I meditate and do the breath work, I can oftentimes get it to go away. Someone wanting to start somewhere, somehow, what's a way to, at least, you talked about habits, which I so firmly believe in too. What's a simple gift that someone can give to themselves to help with their nervous system, to help at least begin to reset what might be out of whack?
Yes. The habits, how you live your daily life, definitely is important. So even if you could start with the morning and doing breath work, that would be helpful. So breath work, or even just breathing, right? Breath work itself, it's very involved, but even if you just start with simple breathing exercises, you need 30 seconds to reset your nervous system from going from the fight or flight response to the rest digest. So however you do it is the one that's best for you. So there's something called box breathing, where you do the 4-second counts. That's a good one. 4, 7, 8 is a good one, where you breathe in 4 counts, hold 7, and exhale 8. There's also called the physiological sigh, where you just take a deep inhale in. When you're full, you take another inhale and just sigh out. And you don't have to keep track of anything, no counting, just breathe. And you do that within 30 seconds, you will reset your nervous system. So that's something that you can take everywhere. So even if, say, you still have a habit with grabbing your phone, at least breathe. And then if you can start with the habits, try not to look at your phone first 5 minutes you wake up, and just be present. Breathe, and practice gratitude. And then take it a step further. If you want to be mindful of what you're eating, what you're consuming, and then take it further from there. So there's always something more you can do. But if you start small, just one small step, just breathe, literally just breathe and practice the pause, that's going to take you a long way.
I love that example too with the phone, because what I've noticed, and I know this is true for a lot of us, is that we reflexively grab our phone and look at it, scroll, whatever it is, in the line checkout for groceries, or at the traffic light, which then leads to can't put it down, without ever even realizing we're doing it. And so, I want to start doing that too. When I go to grab the phone, maybe just try the quick 30 seconds of breathing. And suddenly you've moved on. So I wanted to end with that, just because I thought it would be a nice little takeaway for everybody. Of course, check out the book. There'll be so much more in there, Remina's story, but also so much practical advice and what might be able to help you. So the book is Odd Girl Out, Doctor Within. There's a podcast as well too, right?
I'm going to pick that up again soon. So season 2 coming soon.
Okay. So you could check that out. And of course, her website, drremina.com. Remina, thank you so much for sharing your story, for helping, for inspiring, for sharing all that expertise. I know that it'll help anyone that is listening in many different ways. Really appreciate you doing this today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Everybody knows Joe Goldberg. It's around the bases. Everybody knows Joe Goldberg.